Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to the Sensitive Stability BPD Live Show. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kevin Reynolds. I am a BPD survivor and a BPD coach. Each morning on TikTok at 7 a.m. US EST, Monday through Friday, we go over a different topic related to borderline personality disorder. That said, this morning, good morning, everybody. This morning, our primary focus is going to be relationships and trust. Now, you could isolate both of those topics we have before, because there's a lot that you could say about either one on its own, right? A lot of things about relationships and BPD that are just plain different, tougher, just generally harder. And then, of course, we also have a predisposition to distrust. So on the trust side, we are always leaning, before we're better, towards distrusting someone. Now, this goes for all types of relationships, not just romantic ones. It goes for every type of relationship. Bad things happen when we were young, usually, is how it works, and those things were out of our control. Now, as we are an adult, we try to tighten all the valves to make sure that we don't get hurt again. That's how that works. Unfortunately, for people like me who struggled with BPD, the distrust was involuntary until I understood what trust was. On the other side of things, we do have the issue in relationships where we have to measure the trustworthiness of an individual. We can't just go blindly trust, because you'd say, well, because we're predisposed to distrust, that might mean that we have to try and just choose to trust all the time. Not entirely true. You have to learn to choose to trust like a neurotypical person to have neurotypical relationships. It doesn't mean that you get walked all over or that you have to always, swallow every fear. Some fears are founded in legitimate, factual basis. Some things that have happened might give you a very good indicator that maybe you should basis. Some things that have happened might give you a very good indicator that maybe you should distrust someone. So by no means am I saying because you have BPD, you must always choose to trust. There are instances where it might make sense not to, but before we're better, we're typically on a mission to try and find reasons. They call that confirmation bias, right? We'll also curate our world in ways where it doesn't seem like we distrust, but we do. The biggest example I use of that typically is the good old, it's not that I don't trust you, babe, it's that I don't trust everyone else. In reality, deep down, you don't trust your partner in that scenario. It's just easier not to paint that picture because we are pretty smart people and know what social norm accepts. That's why we find these coping mechanisms. That's why we create and craft these types of worlds and responses that way. It's because we don't want to look like we're crazy, right? Or irrational, or controlling, or manipulative, or unsupportive. We don't want to look that way. Part of this journey is having extreme awareness and admitting and realizing when things are irrational. And a lot of that involves a skill that I talk about frequently called objective analysis. You have to have the ability to look at something objectively and determine whether or not most of social norm would agree that that is distrustful, or if most of social norm might say, that sounds kind of paranoid, sounds kind of ridiculous, right? And that job isn't easy, that job isn't easy. But if somebody's given you no reason to distrust them, yet you're still finding yourself trapped, worrying within the relationship, terrified, that's the paranoia that I'm talking about. On the distrust side, that doesn't make sense. You have to have the ability to step outside of the situation and look in through the window and say, what's it look like for real? What is this situation looking like? And why? Is it because of my past? Is that kind of creeping in? Am I fearful that things happened to me before will happen again? Is it because of some other insecurity? I'm terrified something in the future will happen because I don't feel good enough about myself. Or is there some type of real root foundation that's present? Something that you can obviously identify and see and say, this is wrong. And most people would agree. Having that kind of ability to break situations down like that is going to fix a lot of problems, because before remission, you may notice that a lot of fights revolve around things like jealousy, fear of abandonment, the idea of rejection, feeling compared to other people. Of course, feeling not good enough. You have judgment and criticism. All of these things can kind of break down one's center of self in the moment, of which send you into positions where you might make decisions or, impulsivities kick in that you regret. You have to be able to look at a situation objectively, which means outside of the box, as if it isn't your own situation that you're living in. Having that ability to look at the past and the present scenario as if it's someone else's story without the emotional content is one of the easiest ways to get to the bottom of things and understand how to utilize objective analysis. Good morning, Vitality. Paranoia seems to be a major thing for BPD. I am guessing emotional insecurity is a driving factor. Yep. The emotional insecurities and just insecurities in general. The problem with this Vitality is that we really did get screwed over most of the time somewhere in the past. Many times it's so early in life that those are the deepest rooted neural pathways in your mind. So your mind's always going to fire in fight or flight mode to certain types of triggers if you've been exposed to something terrible in the past, especially early in life. Okay, so, for instance, for me, I had a very invalidating childhood. I was chasing validation that I was not getting. And on top of that, to compound the issues, something very traumatic happened to me, like many of us. Thank you for the heart. At about age 6, very early age. So what does that do to somebody? I mean, what does that do to somebody to already feel like they're chasing something they can't get? They don't feel good enough as it is, and then somebody uses them to an extreme degree. How does that person's adult thinking look? Oh, that is very different from someone who had a validating childhood with no trauma points. Of course, they're going to say, well, no big deal. Thank you, Pasha. No big deal. I'll trust you. It's all good until there's something to see that's distrusting, right? But not for people who have that scenario, that root scenario without the right type of support from the right type of people and the right type of understanding from the people supporting them leads to a place like my early adult life, right? Where I was ruled by insecurity. And it was very hard to escape that. It was very hard for me to dig deep and recognize and realize my personal potential in the world and position in the world and my value in the world for myself. Not based on what other people are looking at me telling me I'm worth, but for myself. It was very hard to separate that old neural pathway from the new one. In fact, that jealousy, fear of abandonment, rejection kind of complex is one of the biggest hurdles that we all have. Because the truth is, it's founded in what other people think of you, and it's only solved by what you think of you. But how can you think better of you if your entire life has been based on what other people think of you? That's a hard transition to make. It's kind of like taking a truck that, uses gasoline and then somehow converting it on your own in your adult life into some truck that takes diesel gas. Totally different type of gas. Everybody else is using diesel. Should have probably gone backwards on that example, but you know what I'm saying. It was easy for them because that's the fuel they've always been using, the fuel that fuels themselves. And you, their partner, was just an added bonus. Your external validation to your partner who doesn't have BPD is welcomed and loved and enjoyed, but it's not needed. Whereas you need to hear those things that they say about you. There's a difference there between how we operate. Pasha says, why is my fear of vulnerability such an issue? It throws off the professional when it comes to BPD. Well, vulnerability is a scary thing for us because the changes that are highlighted when you are vulnerable come with intense fears that you will get less from the outside world. If I were to trust my partner more, then I wouldn't know if she was cheating on me, kind of philosophy, right? If I were to trust this person more and let them go to the party by themselves, or let them get this particular job, or let them dress this particular way, or see this particular person, or do these particular things, then they'll leave me because those things are so much better than me. For example, right? So speaking strictly from the fear of abandonment side of it, it is personal insecurities that you are not good enough at the root of all that. And the only solution is to feel so good that the outside world can't change how you feel about yourself. And that comes with a change in perspective, a number of them, and disciplined practice. And if you missed yesterday's episode, I'm sure it'll be posted on YouTube soon. We post all the old lives on YouTube, but that one was pretty relevant to that. So check that out and be on the lookout for that. Vitality said, right type of support is key to keep trauma from firing up in BPD. It could happen anywhere. Anyway, here's the thing. Support is not necessary for someone with BPD to get better. You can get better by yourself. You can get better alone. You can get better with no support. You just have to have the right roadmap. You just have to have the right roadmap and the discipline to have a will to change that applies those items. If you don't, then you won't change, and that's that simple. Now, if you have a support system that's invalidating, it can be a much deeper struggle. I had to cut my parents out of my life for a little while because they didn't believe in mental health or mental illness or mental health support when I was growing up. They most certainly did not understand what was going on with me, and it was distracting me from my ability to get better. Now, in retrospect, that's a hilarious catch-22, because part of the problem is me caring so much about what they think. You know what I mean? So that's why I had to cut them out, because it was too much of a distraction. But once I'm better, now I look back and I'm like, well, you probably could have done it without cutting them out. You just have to care less about what they think. But that is the whole problem we have. We care too much about everybody else, and you care about yourself the least. Sometimes none. Sometimes, if you have BPD, you don't care about yourself at all. And then that is another compounding issue here, because you're looking at the outside world telling them, I'm worthless, there's no point, nobody cares about me, nobody loves me. How could you ever like me, right? But they can't fill you. They could be more supportive, but more supportive doesn't mean what you think it means. More supportive in your eyes might mean them curating their world to make you more comfortable. That is the opposite of what they should be doing. They should be helping you feel comfortable with the changes. They should be helping you along with the changes, but they have to take a real tight look at what they're doing and decide whether or not there's any enabling present. Because when the enabling's there, it's actually holding you back. And you might say, oh, my partner's so great, they accommodate me so much. Well, okay, but that is on the codependent enabling side, and we're always so scared to hear codependent, because we think that if this is another fear, for example, surrounding the relationships and trust and whatnot, we think we have to have them all the time, always there, reassuring us constantly, no matter what. We think we have to have that in order to feel good about ourselves. But all that does is stop you from building a world where you actually do feel good about yourself. And that's what you need. You need a world where you feel good about yourself. And it doesn't have to come at the end of a long journey. You can start in small pieces. You can start today. There's this parable I heard recently. It was and I'm probably going to butcher it, but I'm going to do my very best here. It's a pretty good parable. And it put a lot of things into perspective for me even now, okay? Because I'm always trying to do something great. I'm always trying to do something great, which is fine. That's okay, as long as you're also enjoying today, right? So this parable, there is a hardworking Mexican fisherman. He's on a small boat, and he pulls up to a dock, and he's got all these amazing fish in there, like a great deal of catch, right? And he meets an American businessman on the dock, and the American businessman says, "Wow, you caught a lot of fish. How long did that take you?" And he says, "Oh, not that long, not that long. It took me a couple hours." He goes, "Oh, well, what'd you do with the rest of your time?" And he says, "Well, I went home after that, or, I traded in the fish and got the rest of what my groceries were that day. I went home to my wife and kids, spent some time with the kids, took my wife to siesta, and, I come back and we cooked dinner, and then, we watched a movie. I went out and had a couple, beers with my buddies, played the guitar. We like to hang out and play the guitar at the end of the day, and then I went to sleep early so I can get good sleep, so I can wake up tomorrow and go back out fishing in the morning." And the American businessman looks at him and says, "Man, you got a problem. I can help you." And he says, "Help me with what?" And the American businessman says, "Well, you could be a multi-millionaire. I could help you get there. What you ought to be doing is, hiring another employee, staying out 4 times as long instead of going home. I mean, you could catch 4 times as many fish, get a bigger boat. Then you could make a connection with the distributor. Then you could control the distribution in the area. Then eventually you can move, to New York, and you can eventually get an IPO for your company and sell out and make millions of dollars, right? And then you could live a life where you could retire. You could retire and you could have all the time you want to do whatever you want with." So the Mexican looks at the American businessman and says, "Well, how long would that take?" And the American businessman says, "About 20 years. But after that, you'd be able to enjoy life." And the backwards thing here is that life was there to be enjoyed the whole time. It was there to be enjoyed the whole time. And this humble individual had figured it out, whereas this other individual was never filled inside himself and thinks that the idea of life is constantly always climbing higher on the social ladder, for instance. Or, in other words, I'll be happy when. I'll only be happy when. I'll be happy if, right? The same thing applies with relationships. We say, well, I'll be happy when they do this. I'll be happy if they do that. I'll be happy if they say this. I'll be happy if we could do that. And the truth is happiness could be here right now. But you're overlooking it with this grander idea that it's somewhere down the yellow brick road, somewhere down the fantasy highway there. But, you're missing out every single day. That's the truth. So part of that comes down to learning how to trust people who deserve it, learning how to trust people who haven't betrayed it, learning how to trust people who you have gotten close to and can see mean you well and have good intention towards you. That's part of this journey. That's part of the mission here. And without that type of ideology, you're going to spend a lot of your time panicking and freaking out for hours on end about stuff that ultimately is not even in your control in the remotest sense. And you have to let go of the things that are out of your control to that degree. I mean, you can only control what you can put your 2 hands on in front of you right now. You can maybe influence some people. You could do some stuff to build trust, but you have to start taking real accountability for what part of the past is coming into the present, what part of your fears of the future are coming into the present, what parts of your communication are contributing to a place where you feel like there's distrust. And how do you resolve that without being an asshole? That's another part of this. How do you resolve those communication problems without coming across like a controlling, supportive idiot? And that's a tough skill to manage, because it means stepping over a hurdle that you haven't stepped over before, which is the idea that the world is unknown. It's unknown, it's uncomfortable, and it's scary as you're moving forward. But the greatest things in life are always on the other side of terror. And to get there, you're going to have to walk into the abyss. You're going to have to walk into the dark areas of the world that you don't know. You're going to have to try new things. And some of that involves trusting people a little more. The right people. the people that display love or care for you. And you have to understand what love and care is. I say that because when you have BPD, you measure love and care so wrong most of the times before you get to remission. I would think that my value in the world was how much money I earned or what I did for people. The favors and actions and behaviors that I could do that would make someone's life better, I thought that's the only measure of love. That is a measure, and it's also kind of inappropriate because it's almost like we thought we found a hack because we could put in a lot, right? We could just keep putting in. We could go over the top. We could put in so much. That's why we end up love bombing in the beginning of the relationship, because we think our only value comes from what we can give and do. That we're not just valuable just in general, just being here, that you couldn't possibly offer somebody a lending ear and not try to solve their problem. Just hear them, and that be enough of a currency, that you couldn't just be a good friend in general. Just a reliable friend. And that could make you valuable enough. The idea that could make you valuable enough, it's so foreign to us. Instead, we have to even sacrifice pieces of ourselves a lot of the time. You know what I mean? In order to try and prove ourselves, our loyalty and our commitment and our care and our love to other people. And then we wonder why we're so upset when they can't return it. It's because they're a whole person a lot of the times, and they can't sacrifice themselves to try and make you feel better. I had a client who she wanted to help her friend, right? She wants to help her friend. She agrees to watch the kids every once in a while for her friend, like babysit for free or whatever. And she's so concerned, wrapped up in the idea of what her friend thinks about her. Well, one day, she has a really important business meeting she has to go to, and her friend texts and says, "Can you watch my kids?" And what's her brain immediately goes to, oh man, maybe I could be late to my meeting, maybe I can cancel, maybe I can move it, all because going and doing this favor seemed so much more important than her own life. Now, fortunately, this client is catching it completely on their own and fixing it completely on their own. It's going great. It's going great. But hearing their revelation, hearing how they explain, and then I caught myself and I'm like, well, it's okay to say no. I can't. She'll find someone else. And normally I wouldn't be able to do that because I'd be worried that if I wasn't the one that did the favor, she'd stop coming to me altogether. And eventually she'd say, well, I'll pick somebody else and replace her and I'll lose my friend. If that's the case, then that was a bad friend. You can't watch their kids because you're busy and have a life, and now you can't be friends with them. That's not logical, right? But she caught it all on her own because she started to figure out how to break this down and learn how to trust herself and trust another person, and trust that person will be there when she says no. You see what I mean? But we don't trust our people enough typically. If they say, oh, well, I'd like you to be able to do this, and it's something you don't want to do, place you don't want to go, and you have no interest in it, and you do it anyway, and then you end up vengeful or resentful, upset, angry at yourself, at them, worthless, feeling like nobody cares or loves you, throwing it in their face. Every time you go to the movies, it's always what you pick, every single time. You get into that kind of place because you don't trust the people in your life enough to stay, because you are simply just good enough to be there. It's incredibly ingrained. That behavior, that coping mechanism, and the way that we operate like this is incredibly, incredibly ingrained in our lives. So that said, getting out of this kind of behavior involves a complete reconstruction of the mind. You have to totally change your perspectives in the world. You have to change how you look at yourself. You have to change how you look at the other people that are around you. You have to change how you look at relationships and understand what are relationships. Because before remission, relationships are a sense of security to us. If I'm with somebody, I feel okay most of the time, at least some of the time. at least enough of the time to be semi-functional. The second these relationships disappear, be it a close friend or a family member or a partner or whatever it may be, a parent, we start letting it break down our character. Oh, we must be a bad person. We must be broken. We must be not good enough. And sometimes you very well may have contributed to the demise of the relationship, and maybe oftentimes you have because of perspectives like this. But it's not true that you're a bad person. It's just true that you don't have the right coping mechanisms or perspectives, and nobody ever taught them to you. Nobody ever helped you learn these things. If they had, then you'd have a different way of functioning. You'd have a different belief system. You wouldn't feel like every single minute was so critically imperative, that you knew where this person was all the time and that they always were there for you whenever you text, and they reply fast, and they sacrifice as much as you sacrifice, and they give everything you think they should give. You won't have that kind of perspective. But you have to start looking at relationships for what they are. Auxiliary components. They are relationships are extra quivers in your arrow, or arrows in your quiver. Reverse that. They are components that are additions to your life. They are not your life. You know what I mean? They add on to your existence. They do not compose your existence. When you think that they compose your existence, you end up in those places where you're, having trauma, having fights, where all the drama's erupting, where the episodes and the splits happen, because you actually let people get that degree of control over how you feel. And the only way to try and keep it under control, so you constantly have a steady flow of feel good, is to control them as much as you can. That's why people push away from us. That's why things are the way they are. You have to start appreciating the time that you have with people for the right reasons. You have to learn gratitude. You have to start understanding that I have to have center of self-respect. I have to have a certain amount of dignity. I have to have my reputation intact. No matter what, I want my reputation with myself, number one, to be good. So I want to know that I've always done my best and always tried hard, and when I didn't, I want to let it go, forgive myself, take the lesson, and do better. And I want to try and make the world a better place for all the people in my life and all the people around me. And that includes allowing them the trust that they deserve. There is that caveat, though, because you cannot just let yourself get used. That's something we will do. And the effort of people-pleasing will get used, but also in the transition of going from, I'm going to trust nobody, to, okay, my trust is broken, I'm going to start trying to trust everybody. Well, that's illogical too. Not everybody trusts everybody. The example I often give is there's different levels of trust. There's superficial trust and there's real trust. And it's a scale. It's a scale, okay? So I will superficially trust the cashier at a grocery mart with my credit card while she's right in front of me to run a transaction. But if she were to say to me, I'm going to run out to my car with this credit card real quick, I wouldn't trust her, right? Because I superficially trust this person. We superficially trust people all the time, and you could start to see the break. Like one of those times when you set your purse down on a table and you have to walk away 10 feet. You can kind of see it still, but there's people walking in between you and the purse. That's still, I superficially trust the room I'm in, but not enough. I'm kind of looking at it all the time, and that's rightfully so, because people snatch purses and they steal and they run. People are selfish and there are bad people. There are criminals out there. So you start to see it kind of, right? Now, if you were to get into a relationship and then overnight reveal every single detail about your life, all your trauma points, making you a very vulnerable person, you have chosen to give real trust to somebody who hasn't deserved it. If you told that cashier, yeah, go ahead and borrow my card for an hour, I trust you not to spend anything on it, you're trusting them with real trust for the wrong reasons. You have to learn where superficial trust is okay without feeling like you're disappointing people, because that was an issue. If that cashier said, oh man, I really need to run this into the office back there, I'd feel before remission like I have to say, okay, I trust you, even though I'm like desperately trying not to burst inside and I clearly don't trust them. You see what I mean? Trust is still a scale, but to some degree, when you get to a certain level, you build up a relationship with a partner, you've been with them for many years. The black side of it, the negative side is almost the entire scale to some extent. So if you distrust even a little bit, it's enough to kind of leak into the relationship in the wrong ways and create issues. But that person should have, in theory, built up a level of trust with you to where you can sacrifice what you want to sacrifice and deal with it. And I think making the distinction is an important conscious effort. It is not something that you just it's not something that materializes so naturally for us with BPD. It is something that materializes from conscious thought. And I don't want you to forget that there is actual study-based evidence that says we are predisposed to distrusting other people more than the neurotypical person. So there's no shame in having trust issues. And instead of saying, babe, it's not that I don't trust you, it's that I don't trust everybody else, what I should have been saying the whole time was, I have trust issues. I have trust issues. Really bad stuff happened to me. Really bad stuff happened to me is really hard for me to trust. Maybe you can help me with that. This might make me feel a little better. I know it's on the, you shouldn't have to do it side of things. But if you do this for me, might make me feel a little better, and I'll see the trust build. You see, you have to work on it. And that's where having a good support system might help you move a little faster, because a support system that says, okay, I get that. Yeah, sure, I'll share my location. You don't have to share your location with somebody, but you share it. It makes trust a little better, right? But I'll tell you, here's the bottom line. No matter what it is that they give you, sharing location, checking in every hour, whatever the hell it may be, it's not enough, because they could still go cheat if they wanted to. They could still go betray you if they wanted to. They could still talk about you behind your back. They could still do all the things that might upset you. And that's why it's so important to have a center of self that no one can touch. Because you never know what the future holds. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what somebody's going to think or feel or believe in 4, 5, 6 years from now, 10 years down the road. You just won't know. You are stumbling into it. You are stumbling into it. And we're all stumbling into it. We're trying very hard to make good decisions, right? Make the right decisions, set us up for success, not failure, lean in the right direction, all that kind of thing. But that doesn't mean that you have control over the outside world. And because of that, you have to admit to yourself that it is always possible to run into a problem. That is always possible to be betrayed. That is always possible that somebody's not going to like you or doesn't want to be with you anymore. And that's a tough thing to swallow, but I'll tell you what, it's certainly a lot better than running the relationship straight into the ground with a plethora of distrust and control. I mean, that is not as favorable as simply trying. You see? Good morning, Tina. Yeah, that part I don't understand. Why hate me yet control me to the point of microphones? I'm guessing that your partner's recording what's going on or something like that. Well, it's not you that they don't distrust. It's the world that they don't distrust, especially if you haven't given them a reason to. I'm assuming that you haven't given them a reason to, They haven't come across any mysterious texts or anything weird like that in passing. You know what I mean? If you have given them no reason, it's not you. It's just that they don't know who they are. And it doesn't mean that they're not somebody, because you fell in love with them and you fell in love with somebody for sure. They just don't know who they are. They don't know that they're worth something to you, enough to where you would stay, and that's enough. And I'll tell you another thing. As a BPD person, before remission, we typically don't realize that we're offending you. When we say something like, when we accuse you of cheating, or we're, forcing you to make some unreasonable action in order to make us feel better, the thought doesn't cross our mind in terms of how you hear it. Because, being in remission, if Carolyn came up to me and said, I think you're having romantic relationships with clients, I would be deeply offended. I would be deeply offended. That would be an attack on my character. Do you see? And it would make me feel very bad. It'd make me feel very bad about myself. I mean, not directly, it's a contributing energy that I didn't deserve. I have earned trust. I've never cheated. I've never done any of that stuff. I've never had, given her any indication that I'd be untrustworthy. So if she came out of the blue, if she came to me in a different fashion, if she said something like, I was thinking the other day about this, and I worry about it sometimes, because you're a charismatic guy, and I could see how somebody might just fall right on in love with you. And I worry, man, maybe they're better than me. I have empathy for that, and I could say, oh, well, babe, let me clear this up for you. And I could be a supportive partner without losing dignity or enabling her, as long as that was the only time that conversation happened, or not that often kind of thing. But if it was every day, I'd start to say, what the hell, It's because she would have an insecurity in that circumstance, not me, because I've given her no reason to distrust me. Well, that's how it is for us all the time, though. We're looking at our partners, kind of trying to manipulate everything to figure out, whether or not this person's loyal to us or not. In reality, you will never know. If they're cheating, they're going to hide it. Classically, that's what cheating is most of the time. It's hidden. Infidelity is hidden. So you're not going to get to the end of the rainbow and find a pot of gold. You're going to get to the end of the rainbow and find another fucking rainbow. And then another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and then another one. And then you find someone else, and then you'll find another rainbow. And it'll never stop. Because the answer is not chasing the pot of gold. We should have learned this, in all the Lucky Charms commercials. You know what I'm saying? We should have learned this early on. You can't chase down this kind of thing and feel good about yourself. And it's the opposite of trying to get to where you need to be, which is feeling so damn good about yourself that you don't need to worry about that. And I'll say it like this, you don't even care about it. Because if it's happening, you'll deal with it then, and you'll know. We are super empathic people. We are really, really in tune with other people's emotions. And I believe in each one of your ability to actually figure out if this is on the paranoia side, if you're really cognizant and you're thinking about it when it's happening and these thoughts are going down. This is one of the things I help my clients through. I do 24/7 tech support with this program that I run. And, a lot of the problems are, well, this is what's happening. What do you think? And I have to help people understand how to break this down so they have the skill themselves, and then they're not living in terrible fear every moment of every single day. Thank you, MMPR. Good morning to you. Good morning, change name again. And that picture behind me is a governor's mansion in Virginia and Williamsburg. I just saw you mention something about it. I trusted, and now I can just think that they have judged. I hate how TikTok displays these. Judged and shamed me, and now isolate with walls. Well, one of the isolation is one of our answers. It is a defense mechanism, but it is, and I know that that's how most of us look at it, solely as a defense mechanism before remission. I want to change the word from defense to survival, because it is more of a survival technique. We get to the place where we can't just engage, and we also have to understand that it is meant to snatch the person and pull them. It is like a grappling hook. When you are isolating, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, what you're really doing, even if you don't realize it, is you're hooking somebody with a guilt line, and you're trying to pull them towards you, and as they get close, you put the wall up and you don't let them in, and then push them away, and then we're going to snatch them again, pull them back in, and then put the wall up. Can't get in here. So it's impossible for them to do anything about it, truly, and they're just mostly waiting for the chemical energy in your body to dissipate so that you sound like a reasonable person again. Because we never sound reasonable in those types of environments when we're isolating, making threats, making insults, running away from our problems, attacking somebody. We're never reasonable in these survival mechanisms. Survival mechanism does not mean appropriate. In fact, most of them are inappropriate, and here's the thing. I know it's the only thing you know how to do. But if you learned how to do other things, if you learned how to reanalyze scenarios, if you learn how to change your perspective, if you learn how to respond and not react, and what to do in between where you would have reacted and where you're going to respond, you would find that you'll get a whole hell of a lot more of what you want out of life. You'll find that. That is a truth that I have found is undeniably reliable. Everything that I ever did in my life, inappropriately, in order to try and get some level of comfort, always backfired. Maybe not right away, but eventually, always backfired on me. And when I started ditching those methods and substituting them for things like objective analysis, and having a bird's eye perspective and being able to extract lessons out of the past without diving into the past and falling down rabbit holes, you got to be able to take those lessons without the emotional content. When I figured out how to do all these things, my life got infinitely better. It got infinitely better, and not just part of it, all of it. All of my life got better. How I felt about every day, how I felt about other people, how I felt about myself, how I felt in a relationship, how my relationships were going with everybody around me, from friends to business partners to mentors or peers to my partner or my parents or even my sister, right? It all got better. But one of those big things that gets in the way of learning to trust and learning to build proper relationships is this fear of not being good enough. You're going to have to learn how to be good enough. And good enough, you already are. You already are. But to see it, it's like you have to do actions. It's kind of like how you can't see air around you, but it's there all the time, right? You're breathing it and you know it's here, but we can't see all the color spectrums as human beings. Some beings could potentially see blue around them or green around them as if they were swimming in the ocean, but that's the air, You have to be able to understand that your general worth in the world is already about you. It's already there. How you go about seeing it is usually through action. So you will do things that someone who's secure does. You will do things that make you feel like a good person. If you don't know what to do, I usually suggest making your bed in the morning and starting there. Okay? Because you make your bed, you feel like somebody who's, clean and taking care of themselves. You stay well groomed. You're presentable and you feel good every day. You pick up a hobby and you get good at it. Preferably something with teamwork if you can, because building teamwork makes you a team player, gives you that support of knowing that other people can cooperate with you and that you can do it. You have to build a life, and that is the only way that you are going to see that you're good enough. The truth is you always were. You always were good enough the whole time, and that's how it is. I mean, I could say right now that I am not, let's say, I'm not qualified to help people with BPD until I have written 6 books, been on a talk show, been a New York Times bestseller, traveled the world to several different conferences, and helped 5,000 people. I won't be good enough until then. Well, then what's the point now? That's so far away, it's ridiculous. I do things now, and I feel great, and I know it's working. I am in the trenches with you guys right now, helping people one at a time. And I see it working. And I know that I can do it right now. I already know I can do it right now. Now I'm in a good position where I'm nearly done with the book and, nearly done with the PhD and have helped over 1,000 of us. So that is very helpful, but I didn't start there. I started scared shitless. I was like, can I do this? Can I help these people who have this condition like I did? Because I knew I could get really bad. What happens if I can't help them with something? And I said, you know what? I'm the best in the world at this anyway. I'm the best they got. I've tried getting help, and I couldn't find it, I feel like I could go over the rails very quickly. There's something else with that. The going from 0 to 100 really quick is another issue with this, but I will remind y'all that it usually isn't 0 to 100. You just see it that way because of the snap, right? The episode or the split that happens. But normally it's built up over a long course of time. It's been happening for weeks or months or years, or, it could be days or hours. But in general, we don't typically just fall off the rails. Usually it's a build up and a process. And then there's like a straw that broke the camel's back kind of situation that makes us say, well, we snap instantly. We lose those kinds of things, our sense of self instantly. But in reality, there are usually almost always warning signs. That's the truth. And part of your job in getting better and finding your place in the world and having self-worth is understanding how the rest of the world is looking at you in terms of your behavioral output during the reactions. That part does matter. It's kind of like how I say sometimes, if one of your friends says that you're an asshole, maybe he's having a bad day. But if every single one of your friends calls you an asshole, you might have to look at that, right? So having some data is important, but the data that they're giving you before remission is one of you're being insecure. You're trying to control too much, and it's not supportive and it's not fun to be around. So straighten up. But they can't tell us this because our brilliant BPD mind has done such a good job at curating our environment that they're all walking on eggshells and too scared to tell you the truth. And I would encourage you to use that as motivation. Because one thing that helped me get to a place where I was more firmly trusting people is I said to myself, well, I want them to be able to tell me anything. I want people to be in my life to be able to tell me anything. Well, for that to happen, they can't feel judged. They can't feel criticized. I can't take everything so personally, even if it's a personal comment. I have to take it as data and strip the emotion out of it and learn how to use the data constructively. That's how you get better at things like trust and building a foundation of communication. Pasha says, you light fired my brain. Can't wait to start your remission program. Gonna be life-changing. Oh, it will be life-changing. You are a perfect fit for it, Pasha. I can't wait either. I have a slot reserved for you. I'm glad every time I see you in the lives here, and I know you're doing the right thing. Getting through this is not easy. People, it is not easy. It is much easier with camaraderie and somebody who's willing to get dirty, I wish there was somebody who would have been in the mud with me and fell down with me and helped me get back up and keep going no matter what. I wish that was there, and it wasn't. And that's exactly why I do what I do now. It's for that reason. And I hate that I can still say right now to this day that I appear to be the only one doing that type of thing. I hope that other people end up following suit. I hope that it gets better. I really do. But all I can really do right now is what I can put my two hands on and try and influence and control. So I do my best to, do the lives as much as I can. I do my best to post when I can. I'm a little behind on the posting right now, but that is what it is. I do my best to continue my research, to try and learn more, to try and make the world a better place for us, because I didn't feel like many people were trying to make the world a better place for us. I did not feel that way. In fact, it kind of felt the opposite. Kind of felt like, and I see it in some of the comments and stuff in my videos. People say, run for the hills. I'm just thinking, I'm sorry you got hurt. I really am. But at the same time, the world needs a better place for people who are incredible people and just don't know how to harness and use the power that they've been blessed with, which is what I look at this as. It is a blessing in disguise. It is a power that I did not know how to control for most of my life. Jennifer says, and good morning to you, I'm having a hard time dealing with borderline. Any suggestions? Well, firstly, I'll say, if you haven't already, please do reach out to me, send me an email. Tell me your story. Let me know a little bit about what's going on, how it's manifesting for you. There's a button in my profile to make it easy, and I do personally respond to all my emails. I get a lot of them, hundreds a week, so sometimes I'm a day or so behind, but I do take the time to answer each one. The second thing I'll say is I go live every day here. Amit and I, you'll see him in the channel, Sensitive Stability Coach, who goes far unrecognized as compared to what he should be. I don't give him enough appreciation here in the lives, and it's just because I fall so deep into what I'm saying, But without Amit, this show would be very difficult. It would be very hard for me to see you all. But show up here Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. US EST. And if you can't, all the old lives are posted on YouTube. There's a link in the link tree in my profile. So you can check, I think there's like 50, 60 hours worth of content there. You have to start raising your awareness level. And part of that is understanding that there's going to be some things you don't know. There's going to be some things that you don't like. There's going to be some things that are completely unknown that you have to change. But I know that you're smart enough, Jennifer, and that goes for all of you, to know what has to change. You just don't want to because it's scary. So the last thing I'll say for that is you got to put the suit of armor on, you got to draw a sword, and you're going to have to fight the dragon. It's the only way out of this cave. You cannot keep running. It will just keep chasing you. Believe me, I moved state to state. I moved to another country at one point. I moved all over the place trying to run from my problems, run from the past. Oh, there's too many bad memories here. Oh, well, I'll never be worth anything. I messed up too much. Might as well restart with a new relationship. This person will never forgive me. I don't need that friend anymore. I'll never talk to them again. You know what I mean? All these things that we do because we're too scared of the changes that are necessary. It's time to fight the demons that are chasing you instead of running from them. Felina, good morning. Do you offer suggestions to help loved ones? Yes, I actually have an entire program, a whole support program designed for the loved ones. Partners, parents are the most common people who take it, but friends have taken it too. It teaches you reciprocal skills, some perspective changes, communication modifications that will make life a lot better. You can become a much better support system while also not enabling. And it does help if they're going through the remission program, if you're doing it at the same time. But many people find me just as a partner or a parent, and they reach out and we start with the support program with the intention of modifying it as we go to get their BPD loved one on board with the remission program. After we get them on board with the remission program, I reset the partner program, the support program, typically so that they run concurrently at that point. So, that whole duration of me helping get them on board, we just reset it. That's the way we do that. And it's very successful. Sometimes it could take a little while. Sometimes it's really fast. It just depends on the situation. So what I would say is please do reach out to me and tell me your story, and I'll give you a little bit better guidance. If I can't directly help you, I'll point you in the right direction. So you can get some assistance of some kind or raise the awareness to a point where, you might be ready for something like one of the programs that I run here. Everybody thinks that they have to get better overnight. That will never happen. You will never get better overnight. This is a journey. It's a tough one. It's a hard journey, and getting out of BPD is the hardest thing that you will ever do in your entire life. The hardest thing. And it's so funny because it's not easy, but it is simple. All the things you have to do, they are simple things. The people who move fastest are the ones who dive into the rapport with me, end up trusting what I'm saying, and then they just listen even though it's scary, and we move fast. We move super fast. But that takes a little bit of us chatting, a little bit of us getting to know each other better. It takes me sharing experiences too, because who the hell would listen to somebody telling them to do something that's just downright terrifying, and you don't know the person. Who would do that? I wouldn't do that. Even if I'd been listening to me for a month, I'd still want to talk to me about it. I'd still want to hear my opinion, hear some experiences, realize for sure that this man relates to my exact story. He can help me with this. He understands that. And he's still telling me I suffered just like that, and you can do it this way and it's better. And then you make that first leap of faith. When you see the win from it, get one more win or couple more wins under our belt. And then typically people say, give me the whole list. And then they just rapidly fix everything on the list, which is why it's a 2-month program. It's because you can get better in 2 months. Shelley says, how do we stop giving of ourselves so much we start to become resentful from fear of losing someone? Part of the issue is that our construction of our own personal validation, how we feel about ourselves and our position in the world, is judged based on the things that we do for other people, and it's getting very high, and I'm giving. So other people are not going to give as much as you're going to give. They'll give a normal neurotypical amount. We will give a little bit more, and then they'll give a little less because we're giving too much and it's uncomfortable for them, but we'll give more thinking that maybe that'll help them, straighten out and put an equal amount. But then they give even less, and then we give even more, and they give even less, and it becomes even more unattractive and more inappropriate, more uncomfortable, to the point where then it breaks. And the more that you end up giving and they're not giving enough, it's like they're going to leave me. They don't care as much. What's the point? It's a loop. And part of it is dialing down what you're giving less. And that's scary because you've used the giving as a way to validate who you are as a person. So that means that you're going to have to venture off into some of the dark woods a little bit to find out who you are. You're going to, by not giving so much to other people and giving just a moderate level, a normal level, it'll force you to go into the deep waters where you have to discover yourself. And that's a scary place. But when you come back, it's like the Beowulf story, He goes down, everybody's scared of Beowulf, this monster that lives at the bottom of this water pit, deep water pit that no normal man can swim to the bottom of. And every 10 years he comes up and he eats like 10 of the villagers, and they willingly give them the villagers. They sacrifice them to Grendel to avoid, having to have him destroy the entire place, right? That's the deal that they made. Well, Beowulf is this hero, and this hero is you. You have to put on your armor and dive into the pit. And you need to go all the way to the bottom, where no one else is capable of going. And you have to slay this monster. And then you have to drag the head back up with you and show the rest of the village what happened, so that you've earned your trust back. You've earned your rapport back. And the only way to do that is by diving in and going after it. The only way to do it is to step into the darkness, the uncomfortable, the unknown, the place where there is no light, and you have to find your way. And that is hard. But, like I said, it is easier with camaraderie, and I could jump in there with you. I can't slay the monster for you. I could help you. I could be a part of that process, but I can't issue that final blow. That's got to be you. It's got to be you. It's the only way. It's tough to get into that mentality. It's tough to get into that place where you're going to challenge yourself to not make the same decisions that haven't worked out before. Even though they're the only thing you know how to do, it's tough to find a new way of thinking. Because let's not forget, these things that we're doing, that everybody hates, that makes people push us away and leave us, these things have been inappropriate survival techniques. They may work temporarily. You may think that they work because you're able to avoid the hard truth about yourself and addressing the problems. But ultimately, deep down there that's just not working. You know that. And if you didn't, you wouldn't be here. The people who are here know and accept to some level and some degree. Even if you stumbled upon this page, I have faith in the TikTok algorithm at this point, to where I think you're in a place where you want to better your life and you want to get better. Even if you have no idea what BPD is and this is the first time you're ever hearing these words, you could do it. And you're in the right frame of mind to start looking at things differently, to start improving. You really are. I noticed something that's very different about my BPD lives and my videos compared to many other videos and lives in the same category. And that is, most people that are here, they don't want to be trapped in victim mode anymore. They don't want to be trapped in suffering. They want to take control of their lives. They want to improve. I can see it. I can see it in the questions. You guys ask very good questions, very articulate, well-constructed questions that are meant to give you the epiphanies you need to move into the right direction. That's what's going on here. It is a very, very constructive chat. You're all supportive, but it's also constructive. Even the people who are, still in the victimhood, I can tell are working their way out. And it's because that's where we are. This is base camp. And we're going to climb this mountain, man. That's what's going to happen. And I have faith in everybody who shows up here. I really do. If you are here every morning, I know that you can do it. I have no doubt in my mind that you can make this work. But the funniest part about that is that it's not even so important that I believe in you. What we're all looking for and what you need to find is belief in yourself. That's the key ingredient here, having belief in yourself that you can do anything. And I know you can. We're all super incredible people. So it's about time that you step into those shoes, isn't it? I mean, why wait anymore? Why suffer through the day again? Why not challenge yourself and try and do something different? Why not try and draw the sword and fight some of the demons? You don't have to slay them all at once. But you do need to start trying. That said, guys, I am so happy you all showed up today. And tomorrow, I will be here again, 7 a.m. US EST. Show up and have the best attitude you can. Let's get through the day and then repeat and do it again tomorrow. And focus on being slightly better today than you were tomorrow every single day. I'll catch you all tomorrow. Have a good one.